The December wind slashed across the high Colorado plains like a blade, carrying with it the bitter promise of the coldest winter in living memory. For nearly a week, temperatures had plunged to -20 degrees Fahrenheit, transforming every stream, pond, and water trough into glistening traps of ice. On the rugged Elkhorn Range, where wild mustangs had roamed free for generations, nature had set a deadly snare. Aurora, a radiant Palomino mare heavy with her first foal, moved carefully through the frostbitten valley. Her golden coat, thickened with winter fur, glistened under the pale sunlight. At 6 years old, Aurora was in the final stretch of pregnancy, her belly swollen with the fragile promise of new life. Her small herd lingered nearby. Blaze, the powerful bay stallion who led them. Sierra, a wise chestnut mare. And Midnight, a restless young black mare whose every step was sharp with nervous energy. Instinct warned them away from the ice-crusted pond ahead. But Aurora's thirst overpowered her caution. The snow she had nibbled on no longer quenched her burning need for water. As Aurora stepped onto the shimmering surface, Blaze snorted, his hooves striking the frozen ground in alarm. Sierra and Midnight whinnied warnings, but Aurora pressed forward. Her instincts locked on survival for herself and her unborn foal. Then, with a deafening crack that split the silent valley, the ice gave way. Aurora plunged into the black water below. Her desperate whinny of terror echoed across the frozen landscape, a sound that carried both her own fear and the unspoken truth. 2 lives were sinking into the depths together. The herd's panic was immediate. Blaze charged along the shore, his cries raw with helpless fury. Sierra pawed the ground in despair, while Midnight bolted back and forth, unable to comprehend the unfolding tragedy. Aurora thrashed violently, hooves churning in the icy water, her heavy body dragged down by pregnancy, and the jagged edges of the ice cutting into her hide. Every second was a countdown to death. 3 miles away, Daniel Brooks was inspecting his cattle when movement in the distance caught his eye. He raised his binoculars toward the pond and what he saw froze his blood. A Palomino mare struggled desperately in the water, her head barely visible above the ice. Daniel could see from her swollen belly that she was heavy and full, and the thought of 2 lives slipping away filled him with dread. His weathered hands trembled as he grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Brooks. We've got a wild mare through the ice. Pregnant, she's drowning. We need rescue and a vet out here now."
Ow!
His voice cracked with urgency. Within minutes, the call reached Dr. Evelyn Carter, the only large animal veterinarian within a 100-mile radius. At 45, Dr. Carter had seen nearly every emergency possible in her 2 decades of service. But this was different. She grabbed her medical kit, called the local fire department, and sped toward the pond, her mind racing through every grim possibility. When Dr. Carter arrived, her breath caught. Aurora was barely hanging on her golden coat, darkened with ice water, her breaths shallow and ragged. Frost had begun to form along her muzzle. The herd still stood vigil on the bank, their cries growing weaker as though they sensed time was running out. Moments later, the fire trucks pulled in. Captain Mark Callahan, a seasoned rescuer with 20 years under his belt, assessed the situation. "Ice is too thin to walk. We'll need ropes and flotation gear. Every second counts." Secured with ropes, Callahan inched toward the hole. S groaned under his weight, but he pressed on. Finally, with a splash, he entered the freezing water. Even through his insulated gear, the cold burned like fire. His hands numbed instantly as he worked the rescue straps beneath Aurora's massive body. The mare's eyes rolled toward him. Somehow she seemed to know this strange figure in the water was her only chance. 10 firefighters heaved on the ropes, the winch groaning as Aurora's 1,000-pound frame fought gravity and physics. Inch by inch, they dragged her toward the edge. Her body, waterlogged and trembling, seemed impossibly heavy. "Keep pulling," Callahan shouted, his voice hoarse with cold. Dr. Carter monitored Aurora's weakening pulse, her temperature's plummeting. "If we don't get her out now, we lose both." At last, with a final, coordinated heave, Aurora slid onto the frozen ground, her head lulled back, eyes half shut. For a terrifying moment, everyone thought they were too late. But then her chest rose in a shallow gasp. Dr. Carter rushed in with warming blankets for fluids and emergency meds. Aurora's lips had turned bluish, her pulse dangerously faint. Worse, Contractions rippled across her belly. Her body was going into premature labor. Carter hesitated only a second. Stopping the labor could kill them both. Supporting it might give them a chance. She chose the latter. Minutes stretched like hours as Aurora strained, her strength nearly gone. Yet when the foal finally slid into the world, a tiny golden filly, with a piercing cry, the valley erupted in sound. Faith. That was the name Dr. Carter whispered as she rubbed the foal dry. Faith had come 3 weeks early, but her spirit was fierce. She wobbled to her feet within half an hour, seeking her mother's milk. Aurora, though still weak, nuzzled her baby with instinctive love, her own survival now tied to her daughter's. From the ridge, Blaze lifted his head and released a triumphant whinny that echoed across the snowy plains. Sierra and Midnight answered, their voices weaving together in a wild chorus of relief and joy. The trailer ride back to Dr. Carter's clinic was tense. Aurora's breathing remained fragile, and Faith's tiny body needed warmth and constant monitoring. Blaze, Sierra, and Midnight followed as far as they dared, their cries fading into the distance as the truck carried mother and foal away. For 2 weeks, Dr. Carter barely left their side. Aurora battled pneumonia from her ordeal, while Faith required round-the-clock care to ensure her premature birth didn't hinder her development. Slowly, painfully, both began to recover. Faith's playful spirit blossomed, and Aurora's strength returned as her bond with her foal deepened. By spring, they were ready. Wildlife officials and community volunteers gathered to witness the release. Daniel Brooks drove the lead truck, Captain Callahan and his crew following behind, and Dr. Carter sitting in the passenger seat silent, reflective, and proud. When the trailer door swung open, Aurora stepped onto the grass with regal grace, her golden coat gleaming in the sunlight. Faith bounded out beside her, legs shaky but eyes wide with wonder. From the distance, Blaze, Sierra, and Midnight thundered forward. The reunion was breathtaking. Blaze nuzzling Aurora with unmistakable tenderness. Sierra and Midnight flanking her, welcoming Faith into the herd. The humans stood in silence, some with tears streaming down their cheeks as the Mustangs galloped together across the plains. Months later, Daniel often spotted the reunited herd grazing peacefully, Faith frolicking by her mother's side. Each glimpse filled him with quiet gratitude. For Dr. Carter, Aurora and Faith were more than patience. They were proof of resilience, love, and the unbreakable will to survive. And for everyone who witnessed it, the frozen rescue of that bitter December day became a story not of despair, but of life's extraordinary triumph.